So today's workshop, we're going to talk about the nonviolent approach to interviews, and we're looking at the principles that are related to the point of view or one's look. And those 4 principles are the point of view is always there, human intentionality, the driving force of action, responsibility versus guilt, and the wealth of diversity. For our first exercise today, we're going to divide into, how many people have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4,
so
5,
we're
6.
going to do 3 groups, Tony.
We're going to do 3 groups of 2. And each one of you will be assigned one of the principles. And we're going to ask you in 15 minutes to discuss the principle that you've been assigned and find a way of presenting it to the other groups. Yeah, imagining that your audience maybe hasn't read the material. So how are you going to explain the principle to other people? So there's going to be 15 minutes to prepare a short presentation, and then there'll be the presentation will be 3 or 4 minutes per group. So David is going to prepare the groups, and so David, you're going to give them group numbers 1, 2, and 3, right?
That's right.
Okay. So group 1, we'll do the first one. The point of view is always there. Group 2, we'll do human intentionality, the driving force of action. And group 3 will look at responsibility versus guilt. Great that you're all back. So group 1, who did that? The point of view is always there.
I guess I'll begin, and then you two can pick up, I guess. So we're talking about the point of view, and essentially how the point of there are different kinds of points of views. Obviously, everyone has their own individual point of view that can influence the way that they either, excuse me, tell or perceive a story. But then also we were talking about how when a particular kind of point of view becomes really prevalent and becomes the norm for how things are either told or perceived, then it can really influence culture. We kind of talked specifically about the male gaze influencing the way that women are portrayed in Hollywood, or the tourist gaze influencing how certain countries are portrayed. And, you know, it can result in stereotypes, which isn't always a positive thing. And then we were also talking about like objectivity, and we were trying to work out what that actually means to be objective. Maybe Anita, you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, because we then started trying to see, like, when in the book it was mentioned to be like a neutral point of view, so it has to be as objective as much as it can possibly be. It was hard because then again, objectivity is made up of different subjectivities of people, because you don't have like an omniscient like presence that actually can tell you what objectivity is. So it is hard to pin it down to one single thing. And then, yeah, we started talking about a lot of different like philosophical things, like even what truth is it true? Like, how can you, it's just hard to like pin it down. So I guess in the end, yeah, you can have one point of view, but then again, your point of view can change. It's just fluid, constantly changing.
Exactly. And influenced by many things that you haven't chosen. You haven't chosen your gender, your place of birth, the moment in history in which you were born. Yeah. And all of these things, you're affected by all of that. You know, your point of view, your what you might say is your objectivity is not objective at all. It's, you know, we've all been formed in different situations, and that we take with us. So when people start talking about, well, you know, this is, you know, we're trying to write something objective here, there is no objectivity, yeah, because it's all a combination of subjectivities, and any media organization has got a point of view, it's got a look, it's got an agenda. And the important thing to take away is that you have to be honest. You have to recognize that you have a point of view and an agenda, and therefore be explicit, make it explicit, because then everyone knows where you're coming from. Yeah, and I think what we try to do in Presenso, we make it very clear. Our point of view: peace, non-violence, reconciliation, human rights, progress for everyone. We say it openly. Not everyone else in the media says what their agendas are. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that, because we were talking about how if you tried to be completely honest and not honest, if you try to be completely objective in the sense of just describing the facts as they seem to be, it could become dishonest if you're actually quelling your own sort of opinion, if you believe something completely different to what seems to be being perceived. Yeah.
Another complication, because then you start the question, what does honesty mean? It's another variable. It's almost impossible. But there are sometimes, if we look into our mind when we are going for an interview, for example, in practical terms, sometimes we are a bit tainted in an obvious manner. We are critical of something or other thing, and then if we can detect that and make it more neutral, the chances of having a good rapport with the interviewee, for example, are much higher. So at least to a certain extent, being aware of this matter helps a lot.
And that's one of the points that we want to bring across here, is that we're not trying to deny our subjectivity. We want to be aware of it and recognize that we are moving, we are working in the world with a set of conditions, not all of which we've chosen, but we can be aware of them, and we can start to observe and see how they influence us. And then once you start to observe, well, then you can start to change things. You can decide, you can use your intentionality to choose between different options. Responsibility versus guilt. Who would like to talk about that one?
I'm gonna start.
Okay.
So like guilt, it comes from like 4,000 years ago, with a still of stone from like during Hammurabi, or some kind of like.
That's the one, Hammurabi.
Yeah, fear of Hammurabi, and he had a code where like if someone committed a crime, they have to like pay for it. And you know, in Western culture, we have something similar, which is the law. And yeah, and Nietzsche talks about the word guilt, and it's like you know, negative. It's negatively charged, and in nonviolent journalism, we look to do something different, which Linda will talk about.
Okay. So in general, like more conventional communicators in media might focus on the guilt of a specific person and would focus on blaming. And instead, what nonviolent journalism tries to do is to broaden the perspective and to see a system behind it, and to see also like a responsibility of a system behind those problems, and not to stigmatize a person in order to be able to transform the society and to broaden the points of views, and yeah, the kind of responsibility a system has, not only one person.
Yes, absolutely. And we see, you know, we see how the system you know, looks for individuals to blame, and often the sources of conflict are systemic. There's a system in place which is putting incredible pressure on people and is causing them to behave in, let's say, antisocial ways, or against what has been codified in law. And then suddenly we find people being locked away for completely for stuff which really they have very little responsibility for. They're certainly not to blame for the situation that they live in. So, and that whole thing, that our justice system at the moment comes back from those times of Hammurabi, and it was an advance in the time, because before that, people, you know, you stole my horse, then I would come and kill you. And that was kind of a vigilante justice. So codifying it, putting the state in charge and setting certain penalties for different kinds of misdemeanors was an advance. But is that the furthest that we are able to go in terms of justice? We think it's possible to question that the justice system and the way that laws work and the way that punishment is given out, and humanize that and make it much better for everyone going forward. So that's kind of where that topic comes from. Are there any other comments or observations? Any of the other trainers? Anything else to add to what I've just said?
No, sorry, go ahead, Pierre.
Go, David, go.
No, sometimes the problem with this story of point of view, it's as a journalist, I mean, I'm going to give you an example of, you have 10,000 people protesting against abortions, and they're going to try to find 2 people who are in favor of it. So you give a proportion, you give a similar proportion to an issue to 2 groups of people who are absolutely not in proportion at the same size, and that's a bit what's happening in many issues, at least here in the US, where a very small minority took over the press because of that dynamic of having the different point of view have to be shared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted also to add something regarding the point of view. And what I tend to use, especially in interviews, is to move my head towards another language or country. For instance, if you interview someone regarding the war in Ukraine, try to understand what is saying the person from the point of view of an Ukrainian receiver and a Russian receiver. I mean, to change your view, which will be the question that a Russian will place here in this interview, and which will be the question that an Ukrainian will do. Or if I am, I don't know, reporting of an ecological damage, how this damage will be seen from India or from Brazil or from England, because even if it happens in France, I need to explain all my readers what is happening. And that moves very well the point of view if you change language, for instance. Yeah, if you start asking in Portuguese, how I will say this, or in French, how will this be understood? And that moves a lot one's own point of view.
Thank you, Pierre. We're going to go into the second part of this workshop, and the idea is that we're going to put you back into the same group. So what we would like you to do in your groups is to prepare an interview. We would like you to agree on a person you would like to interview. Don't worry if there is any possibility to actually interview this person. Just agree on someone you'd like to interview. Yeah? And we'd like you to prepare 4 questions that you would like to ask your chosen person. And then once you've prepared your 4 questions, I would like you to come back to this group and give a little presentation to the group in which you answer the following questions. And I will put them in the chat. But they are, so why did you select the person? Why did you select the person that you selected? Why do you want to ask the questions that you chose? What is the relevance to nonviolent journalism? And what do you hope your questions will reveal, and why? And I'm just going to put those in the chat so you can copy and paste them, or you'll be able to see them, I think, when you're in the breakout groups. And we're going to give you 30 minutes. It may be too much. If you're done, just send a message, come back into the main room, let us know that you're done. And you've got 30 minutes to talk about the person that you would like to interview, come up with the idea why and the questions that you would like. And then we're going to give some feedback on all of that.
Tony, Kat is raising her hand.
Yes, Kat.
Is this meant to be like collectively, like one person per group that we're choosing to interview, or are we each individually? Okay, so just one person. It's not that each of us individually.
No, you're going to agree on a person. It could be, you know, Joe Biden, or it could be the man who works down the street at the market. Yeah, you'll decide who is the person, and then you're going to discuss the questions. What's your interest? What are the questions? What do you hope to get out of it? Anyway, those kind of answers that are there to the questions that are there in the chat box. Is it clear? David, are the rooms ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, press your magic button. We'll see you in half an hour.
So basically at first, because we're all from different countries, with Bereket, who's not here now, but we were thinking of something that all of us probably don't know a lot about. And we thought about deaf people and deaf blind people. And Bereket suggested to try, like, pretend that we were interviewing Haben Girma, who he knows, and he kind of like told us who she is, who is a disability and like human rights lawyer and advocate in the US. So we kind of like had to look up what she does because we didn't know a lot about her.
Uh-huh.
And then when it came to asking her the questions, we were a bit we found ourselves in difficulty because it was hard to like formulate the questions without being either disrespectful, feeling like we were missing out something, or being like super, how do you say that? Like having like not very insightful questions, or I don't know. So it was kind of hard. So we have like the two last questions, but we don't really have a first one.
Okay.
And Brun helped me.
No, I mean, like the first question we would like to start with, as a lawyer advocating for disability justice and human rights, and then we would like to ask for like any insights for like an image in general, like disabled people, like how do they live? Not like Bereket wanted us to use the word discrimination, but with Anita, we felt like it was too direct and maybe like impolite and very rude, and you know. But yeah, it would be like how if they feel included in society, and like not only by other citizens, but maybe like the government, and if there are any measures taken like to make them feel included, if they see it as effective. Like maybe get an insight on how people, like disabled people in general, live their daily life, and you know, inclusion. And then like in the second and third question, go like more personal questions to the interviewee, which Anita has. They were more related, I think, like the second one, how she cope with disability, but yeah.
Yeah, and how like what drives her forward in life, because obviously if you have a disability and you're born with that, that's your normality, that's your reality. So it is hard to maybe, it would have been hard to ask her like what it feels to live the way you live, because for her, like it's her world, it's her reality. So we kind of tried, and we wanted to ask, how do you cope with the challenges that you face? And the majority of time, people with disability have to take their rights because they're not given to them. They fight daily to get their rights. And then the last one would be, since she has become a lawyer, she was a graduate she is a graduate from Harvard. How does it feel to have become a role model for people with disabilities? And yeah, those were the questions-ish.
Yeah, they're good questions.
I love it. Yep.
Why did you choose this person? What was the driving force for that? What's the purpose of, what would be the purpose of the interview?
Well, I need to say it was kind of her idea to interview a deaf person, because it's not something you see on the news. And I actually like told her and Bereket that not very long ago, it was like a national day here in Argentina, and my favorite news broadcast show a video of the school that they were singing the national anthem, but they were also like singing it with the sign language, like show to be inclusive, like, you know. And we thought like it would be like really interesting, because it's not like something you see like every day. It's not like in the front page. And yeah, and then, well, Bereket told us about this woman he knew about, that he was like, she's a deaf blind person, and she's Black, so it was like,
and she's a woman,
really
so
interesting.
very
Wow.
intersectional.
Yeah, it's the topic is an inclusive society, no?
Yeah.
Inclusiveness.
I mean, fits perfectly in the topic, in the agenda of nonviolent journalism. Certainly, we would publish that
in habits.
In Presenza, absolutely. So,
Why don't you do it?
Yeah, you have to do it now.
That's so good.
David
You're
is in
right.
New
I
York.
will,
You
I
can
will
organize
find
it.
you. I will find you.
Come on, David, take your phone and start to make calls there.
okay, very good. Anyone else have any any comments or anything to add to what Anita and Bruna have presented?
I was just want to say something Anita said about choosing the right words. That I found it really interesting when she talked about discrimination, like using the word discrimination, and said, okay, we should decide whether it's impolite. And I was thinking, well, but okay, it might be impolite or really direct, but it could also like be clear and present the kind of truth. And sometimes it's necessary to talk openly and to use words that might be, I don't know, not that polite. I don't know how to say that, but it was kind of, yeah, an aspect I'm reflecting on.
And there's an important topic there, which is the difference between spoken communication and written communication. I can speak, I can say something, and you will understand it much better because you're seeing my body language, you're hearing my tone of voice, you're seeing my, my facial expressions. None of that comes across in a written question, in a written interview. And then we go back to our formation, our subjectivity, and the way that when I receive something from the environment, in this case an email or something, I take it all in, and it filters through my landscape, through my formation landscape, and it comes with all my internal prejudices and ideas and beliefs and things like that. And so it's very easy to misunderstand something. And I'm sure we all have experiences where we've written an email to someone and someone has completely misunderstood what we want, and we think, well, how do two people reading the same text come with two different, completely have two different experiences of that? So it's a very important point, Linda. Let's move on to your group. Tell us about your person, why you wanted to interview them, and what the questions you have for them.
Yeah, I might introduce it. It was kind of hard to find well, not that hard, but to see which topics we're interested in. And we decided on human rights because we could connect it quite well. Also with feminist topics. Two of us wanted to focus on as well. And we chose the topic sex trafficking. And yeah, we were discussing which person we would like to interview. And we were discussing the fact or the possibilities to interview a person with maybe a high political position, or people from organizations like activists, people from below. And in the end, we decided to focus on the organization International Justice Mission, and to interview the chief executive officer. And yeah. let's see what.
Great start. Great start. I'm loving where this is going.
Yeah, so we kind of thought that we could connect it in with the war in Ukraine, because I think like one of the questions is, well, why are we asking these questions now? And I can't remember who said, but someone was saying how, it might have been Carolina, I can't remember, who's saying how, you know, the war in Ukraine is obviously putting a lot of women and girls into very vulnerable women and children into very vulnerable situations, which could result in an increase in the prevalence of sex trafficking. And we went on to International Justice Mission website, and that's actually one of their big projects at the moment. And that is the case they're finding. So the first question was, how do you think the war in Ukraine has affected the prevalence of sex trafficking in Europe specifically? And then, should I just read the questions, and then we can kind of Carolina can pick up. And then, so we kind of started Ukraine, Europe, kind of a wee bit closer to home. And then the next question was, from a global perspective, how is IJM's work helping to prevent sex trafficking in the long term? Because they've been working for a while, and have they found that their work is actually being effective, and in what ways? And then the third question, we kind of then, so we go Europe and then we go global, and then we've kind of got the more systematic questions. So in what ways does everyday violence, and talk about the nonviolent journalism definition of violence, that is things like poverty, lack of education, lack of resources, or war, how is that contributing to the problem? And then the final question, which is Carolina's idea, is to basically wrap it all up by asking, well, what specific projects is IJM working on at the moment, and how can readers of this article basically contribute to helping prevent, or helping prevent the problem, or contribute to the work that's going on?
Very good. I would read that interview.
Yeah.
Carolina, did you have things to add?
Not much, honestly. No. I think Catherine covered pretty well. But yeah, it was me that kind of related the issue with sex trafficking to the war in Ukraine, because actually I'm writing an article about it. So I think it would be really interesting to interview someone from a higher ground, and not only to know what they are doing, but to know what we as normal citizens, and besides the donating part, what we can do to help and prevent certain crimes, especially like as a woman, is something that affects me pretty closely. And sex trafficking is not a very common crime, let's say, in my country. At least it's not very talked about. So I don't even have an idea of the number. So I think it would be interesting to know that as well. But I think just assuming the response of the CEO, I think that will be pretty much included. I would like to know everything they're doing, how it can affect, if it's like a long-term project, or if it's like just a short-term solution.
Yeah, it sounds like a great topic. David.
No, I just two things. One, I will start with the legal definition. If you have a legal definition at the international level of what sex trafficking is, because they give a context of what are the boundaries. And the other, I know then now the very young girl have been sold for marriage very early in some, because of the crisis, and maybe I don't know if that's part of the sex trafficking discussion or not.
In terms of how it affects young children.
Yeah, I know that because of the economical hardship faced in many countries, the age of weddings are getting younger and younger, and money transactions are becoming even stronger and stronger. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kat, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, that definitely is a big part of it. Arranged marriages, but also the other thing is the prevalence of shrine prostitutes and young girls in India being sold to be prostitutes at shrines. That's another kind of issue that's related to age, and often if there's a family, again it links to the third question to do with everyday violence. If a family's poor, then they might feel like they need to give like at least their child's getting 3 meals a day kind of thing. It's kind of grim, but that's the kind of logic.
So awful. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And the topic is certainly in the UK, the topic is very relevant because we've just been hearing. So we've got this famous athlete called Mo Farah. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's won 4 gold medals at the Olympic Games. Anyway, he always said that he was originally from Somalia. Anyway, it turns out the story comes out in the media this week that the guy was actually trafficked at the age of 9 from Djibouti via Somalia to the UK and worked for 3 or 4 years as a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boy doing all the housework and looking after the kids of the family. I mean, it's just a complete scandal, and it's just so relevant still. And I'm sure that with wars are opportunities to create more people to traffic, whether that be women or young people. It's very relevant. Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, well, look, I think you great work.
You nailed it.
Yeah, you all nailed it. Really. Right, I'm going to present the homework now. All right. So there are 2 choices. First choice: working in your teams, find a way to reach out to your chosen person from that exercise and organize an interview with them, either online or in writing. Yeah, so in exchange of emails, you write your questions and send them off to them and they respond. Yeah. One of the mentors will help with the technical aspects of setting up an interview if that's necessary. And we can always work with David to record it and do the post-production, or it can just be a written interview. That's your first choice. Your second choice is to work individually, decide on a person to interview, prepare your 4 questions, again, discuss these questions with your mentor, and organize a way to interview this person. Again, if you want to do it in a recorded way, we'll find a way to help make it recorded, and then we'll upload it as a video. So those are your 2 choices for your assignment for the week. So any questions about any of that? In that case, take a few minutes to reflect on the workshop today, what you've learned, how you can apply it to your writing, to your journalism practice, and we will meet again next Friday. So thank you all for coming along. It's been a pleasure to see you all again. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much, guys.
Very nice to see you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Work with your interview. Good work.